Welcome to the Civic Brief with Dr. Isaiah Ike Wilson III, where complex issues meet everyday lives. Now, let's begin.
In classical physics, two massive objects orbiting each other behave predictably, locked into a stable, mathematically neat dance. For decades, the Cold War functioned as a geopolitical two-body system. Introduce a third mass into that equation, and the math breaks. The gravity of each object constantly pulls on the other two, creating a system deeply sensitive to the tiniest shifts. This is the three-body problem, and it is impossible to accurately forecast. Linear statecraft fails in this environment. It attempts to force predictable control onto a reality that is inherently nonlinear and unpredictable. Navigating the modern world requires adopting a different set of rules, an entirely new physics of statecraft. The United States currently operates as a three-body republic, caught in this exact gravitational struggle. This maps three primary forces acting on the American system: external competition, internal cohesion, and institutional legitimacy. The intersection points are zones of compound risk. A crisis abroad perturbs polarization at home. A legitimacy crisis at home erodes credibility abroad. Institutional decay amplifies both. Building brittle, isolated defenses against these interconnected crises causes the entire structure to shatter under pressure. Success requires compound stabilization, mapping and managing the connections between these forces to prevent the system from tearing itself apart. Stabilization begins with strategic hierarchy, the ability to filter out geopolitical noise. This model shows the transition from a full system of many equal dots to a restricted system. Leaders must isolate the primary load-bearing drivers from the secondary disruptions that merely echo them. Once those drivers are identified, statecraft must abandon the promise of long-range deterministic prediction. Three-body systems are too sensitive for fixed forecasts. Modern strategy uses bounded anticipation instead. As illustrated here, this maps a range of plausible trajectories and identifies the critical threshold cascade points where the system might shift. Strategy functions as continuous adaptive learning, allowing the state to adjust as the environment shifts, rather than following a rigid plan. In physics, Lagrange's points are regions where a smaller body remains stable relative to two larger ones. Geopolitics requires these same zones of managed stability. These take the form of ceasefire regimes, neutral intermediaries, or shared frameworks of restraint. These arrangements function as structural shock absorbers. Their primary purpose is safely managing and absorbing systemic energy. Every strategic action, like an economic sanctions regime, transfers energy across domains. It may degrade an adversary's treasury while simultaneously strengthening their domestic narrative of resistance. This comparison shows the result. Rigid systems shatter when they cannot metabolize stress. Resilient systems use a geodesic mesh to dissipate the impact across dissipation nodes. A strategist's primary question is, where will the energy go, and can the system survive where it lands? This framework relies on a final strategic pivot, treating institutional legitimacy as a functional resource, the core operating physics of the state. In a complex system, legitimacy behaves like physical mass. As shown here, its density bends trajectories, shapes compliance, and anchors motion against volatility. A materially powerful state that hemorrhages this legitimacy becomes strategically weightless. Without it, the gravity well collapses. A nation that loses this mass loses its capacity to process the compounding stress of the modern world. These shifts create an architecture of compound resilience. It is designed to allow a state to remain coherent within a system it cannot fully control. Dr. Wilson's verdict identifies a pattern in how these systems fail. Collapse rarely comes from a single decisive blow. True collapse is the quiet, cumulative loss of the ability to hold together as internal and external forces pull the system apart. The core mandate of modern statecraft is clear. We cannot solve the three-body problem. We can only strive to endure it.
Thanks for tuning into the Civic Brief. Got questions, insights, or ideas? Join us at thecivicbrief.com to continue the dialogue. Subscribe, share, and be part of shaping the future, one brief at a time.